Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Lisa Maxwell. Welcome to our first Inspiration Talk of 2021. We're living in a time of unprecedented change, and this demands levels of resiliency that none of us could begin to imagine. Yet, as our CEO, Michael Miebach, said, 2021 is our opportunity for better. And we will achieve better by keeping people at the center of our focus. Today, my co-host, Jennifer Rademaker, and I will learn alongside you from Dr. Janice Johnson Dias on how we can use our energies to become better change agents in our homes, our work, our communities, and our lives.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I know you all are stuck at home on the Zoom life, but I promise to try to at least do and say some things inspirational. So at least you have the energy to keep doing this for the rest of the day after we're done today. Thank you so much.
So I want to probe a little bit on the points around racial identity and representation, and then the intersectionality of that with girls. And maybe just to start out to share a little bit of your backstory. Your daughter Marley is pretty amazing. In the search for children's books that showed Black girls, she and I know you'll tell a little bit more about this, but she really struggled to find books that were representative. And so she founded this hashtag 1,000 Black Girl Book campaign that I'm a big reader. And so this for me was like a real sweet spot because my son is biracial. And when he was born, being a big reader, one of the things that I really looked forward to in being a mom was reading to him. But I wanted to find books that he could see himself in, and I really struggled to find books that featured Black boys, and in fact, it was really a challenge, and it was only when he and I moved to South Africa, when he was 6 or 7 years old, that I was really able to find more of those kinds of books. So anyway, tell us a little bit about this.
So Marley, it's always fun to talk about Marley. So I have raised a pretty precocious child who we like to read to, and took her to the bookstore all the time. From the time she was very, very early, we had play dates at the bookstore. We loved the bookstore. And in 2015, I'm sitting with her. We had breakfast for dinner a lot because I love breakfast. And I'm sitting with her and I'm asking her to reflect on the year. What are some of the things that you like? What are some of the things that you could change if you could? And she says to me many different things, but she gets to this point that she says, I'm sick of reading books about white boys and their dogs. And I look at her and I'm like, what? Right? Like, I am old. I'm almost half a century. And so I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, every book that I'm assigned has a white boy and its dog as the main character. And Marley is, at this point, she's 10 years old. And I'm like, really? Okay. Give me evidence, because I'm a social scientist. I'm like, really, are we being hyperbolic, right? And she lays out the book, the Shiloh series, Old Yeller, she's naming the books. And I was like, okay, let me Google them. Let's see really if they do in fact have a white boy and their dog as their main character. Turns out she's right. Okay, yet another evidence. So I said to her very, very simply, and I asked her the question, which is a question I encourage all caregivers to ask themselves and to ask their children. I asked her, what are you going to do about it? Because clearly this is not a Janice problem, right? What you're reading in school doesn't affect me personally. I can read any book I want to. And you have a social issue, an institutional issue that is happening at your school. Given your set of skills and talents, what are you prepared to do? And she looked at me like, I'm only complaining. And to me, right? And to me, both philosophically and the fact that I work as a change maker, complaining has limited utility. So you cannot sit across from me, even though we're enjoying our pancakes and turkey bacon and spinach, and simply just marshal a complaint about a school system and then be prepared to just move on. So I pushed her to think about solutions. And one of her solutions was that she could collect 1,000 books where Black girls are the main character, because she was interested in making sure that the school also recognized that there are people like her could be the main characters of their lives. And she was going to donate them to schools and communities, but she was going to do what was and has been such an important part. She was going to have a resource guide of those books, so teachers recognize and parents recognize that there were other options than the singular examples that they were using in school. So for me, both as her mother and as a person invested in this work, what I ask people to do is to think about several things. Why does representation matter? Because I think that that's often lost on folks, is that, you know, we have a diverse society in many respects, but the society is 72% white, 13% Black, and then there are other racial groups. And even though America is becoming more and more brown by virtue of our large Hispanic, Latino, and Chicano population, it is still a majority white community. And so therefore, things that are European, things that seem normative and as a part of the culture are not really questioned. But there are consequences for all of us when we don't have an inclusive framework. The consequences isn't simply for my daughter not seeing herself, because she had those books at home. She could see herself at home. What she couldn't do was to see herself in all these institutional places, that the culture did not consider other forms of view. And while it was disruptive to her, it is actually quite disruptive to the white kids, the Asian kids, and in our community, the Indian kids, to not even imagine that anybody else could be the lead, right? And when you don't see other people as the lead, you get a truncated imagination. For you all in the world of finance, the way this ends up playing out is that as productive and as wealthy as your organization is, it is actually not even at its most productive and at its most, because diversity creates greater outcomes. And so when students in the classroom are able to see Black girls, they're able to see Asian boys, gay kids, differently abled kids, they're able to see all of that. It extends their imagination, it engages them more, it gives them what Marley calls mirrors and windows. They get to see themselves, but they also get to look out in the world and expand their view. And it's that kind of expansiveness that actually makes us better human beings, but also from the position of work, more productive human beings. So over the past 4.5 years, Marley's collected 13,000 books and has donated them across the globe. And she's written her own book and bullied me into writing my own as well. But what she has taught me along the way was that this issue of representation, which is often treated as an issue of just personal affliction to those who are excluded, is a huge systematic issue that pushes us in a situation where we're all underperforming, we're all not optimizing the best of us because we don't have enough inclusion in what we do. Now, as a social scientist, you know, I had to look this up and I had to really think about, what does this mean for all the areas that I'm in? What value does diversity really have, other than the intrinsic notion of like the people who are in the minority see themselves? No, it actually really has both economic, social, and political gains. And the more diverse we are, is the more productive we are. But we need a cultural framework that always pushes us to optimizing diversity versus trying to move towards singularity. And when we do that, in the case of, you know, your organization, Mastercard, is that you'll actually make more money, you will have less chaos, and you will have greater kind of cohesion in terms of how the work is delivered. So she has really been a gift to me intellectually, simply because she wanted to just complain. And I asked her the very, very simple question, which has turned out to be quite profound for me in my own life as a kind of North Star, is what are you prepared to do about the problems that you see?